You're standing at the kitchen counter late at night, scrolling through your phone, just trying to breathe after a long day, when a message pops up from someone close to you. Wow. Guess I know where I stand on your priority list. Your stomach drops. Heat rushes into your chest. Instantly your brain splits. One part wants to fire back a paragraph of receipts, the other wants to toss the phone, walk away, and say nothing at all. You feel small and furious at the same time, already replaying the disrespect in your head, already writing the argument that hasn't even started yet. In those moments, it feels like you only have two options: explode or shut down. Either you send the angry wall of text, slam cabinets, raise your voice, and later feel guilty about how you reacted, or you say nothing, swallow it, pretend you're fine, and then carry that resentment around like a stone in your chest. But what if those aren't the only options? What if the most important move in that moment happens before you ever say a word? The real pain here isn't just the comment itself. It's that sense of losing yourself the second you feel disrespected. At work, one sarcastic line from a boss or coworker can ruin your whole day and make you question your value. In your relationship, one eye roll, one "you're too sensitive," can send you spiraling into old hurts. With family, a passive-aggressive joke at your expense can pull you right back into a younger version of yourself who never felt heard. The cost is huge: lost sleep replaying the moment, lost time crafting imaginary comebacks, lost self-respect when you either lash out or silently accept behavior that doesn't sit right with you. Today, we're going to build something different. By the end of this lesson, you'll know how to put emotional distance between the disrespect and your reaction. You'll be able to respond to coworkers, family, or partners with firm clarity instead of rage or silence. And you'll be able to walk away from tense moments knowing you honored your own standards instead of abandoning them in the heat of the moment. Educational content inspired by classical Stoic texts. Not medical, psychological, or legal advice. If you want steady Stoic focus lessons on emotional control, boundaries, and relationships every week, this is the channel for you. Stay with me until the very end, and while you're here, hit like, tap subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. First, we're going to tear apart the belief that feeling disrespected automatically means you have to react right away. Next, we'll look at how to build a small but powerful gap between what someone says and what you choose to do about it. Then we'll get practical about the exact sentences you can say in work, family, and relationship situations when someone crosses a line. After that, we'll walk through how to protect your energy after disrespect so you're not replaying it all night. Finally, we'll pull it all together in a real Friday night scenario, after a long week, when you're tired and vulnerable, so you can feel what it's like to handle disrespect without losing yourself. In a bit, we'll walk through that Friday night example where one disrespectful comment could have turned into a full meltdown, and you'll see the exact moment you used to explode, and what it looks like when you don't. Let's start with the most basic shift, understanding that disrespect and your reaction are not the same event. You're used to treating them like they're fused together, like a light switch. They say something slick, you snap back. They roll their eyes, you shut down. The new move is this: you create a tiny gap between what happens and what you do next. That gap is where your power is. Without it, you're just letting other people's moods drive your life. With it, you start becoming someone who notices the fire in your chest and still decides how to use it. If you don't change this, you'll keep living in emotional whiplash. One group chat message can hijack your whole afternoon. One comment in a meeting can make you spend the rest of the day crafting the perfect retort in your head instead of focusing on your work. One sarcastic remark at home can turn a quiet evening into an hours-long argument where neither of you even remembers how it started. The stakes are simple: if you never build that gap, your reactions keep owning you. Here's why this gap matters. When you feel disrespected, your body reacts first: tight chest, hot face, shallow breathing, and racing thoughts. Your nervous system is wired to see disrespect as threat, rejection, exclusion, loss of status. That's why you feel it so intensely. But as Marcus notes in Meditations, you always have a choice about how you interpret what happens to you. The story you attach to the comment, "They don't care about me, I'm an idiot, people always walk all over me," is what fuels the explosion or the shutdown. When you build a gap, you give your brain a second to question that story instead of running with it. This is how a calmer, more focused version of you responds instead of reacting. So here's your first exact line, and it's not something you say to them, it's something you say to yourself. The next time you feel that hit of disrespect, you quietly tell yourself, something just landed hard. I don't have to react yet. That one sentence is a small act of self-respect. It reminds you there's no rule that says you need to respond in the next 5 seconds. You can feel the punch and still stay standing. Picture this in a North American workplace. You're on a Zoom call with your team. You present an idea you actually worked hard on. Your manager responds with a half smile and says, "Yeah, maybe we'll try that when we have more polished proposals." A couple of your coworkers chuckle awkwardly. Instantly, you feel that familiar sting. The old version of you wants to either snap, "Wow, okay, that was unnecessary," or shut down and not say another word for the rest of the meeting. Instead, you hear that inner line you've been practicing, something just landed hard. I don't have to react yet. You notice your heart pounding. You let the silence stretch for a beat, then you simply say, "Got it. I'll follow up with a tighter version after the call," and you move the agenda forward. You're not pretending it didn't sting. You're just refusing to let your reaction be controlled by the worst 5 seconds of your manager's day. Your tiny action for today is very straightforward. You're going to write that one line down somewhere you'll see it, Notes app, sticky note on your laptop, background on your phone. Something just landed hard. I don't have to react yet. Your job isn't to use it perfectly in every situation starting tomorrow. Your job is to see it often enough that it becomes an option your brain remembers when you're activated. Right now, if you can, pause and take 3 slow breaths with me. In through your nose, let your belly rise, hold for a second, and out through your mouth, a little longer than the inhale. Again, in, hold, and out. One more time, in and out. As you do that, think about one recent moment where you felt disrespected and reacted in a way you didn't like. Just pick one. Now imagine replaying those 5 seconds with that new line in your head, something just landed hard. I don't have to react yet. You're not changing the other person. You're changing the space between them and you. Hold on to this one simple gap, because when we get to that Friday night story later, this quiet line in your head is what keeps a bad comment from turning into a night you regret. Next, we're going to make that gap concrete by giving your reactions an actual rule. You don't respond to disrespectful messages or comments right away. Instead of letting your emotions set the timeline, you set the timeline. Think of it like putting a buffer on your reactions. The instruction is simple. When you feel disrespected, you delay your response. Not forever, not as a way of ghosting, but long enough to let your body calm down and your values speak up. If you never change this, every rude text, every sharp email, every careless comment can drag you into a fight before you even know what you truly want to say. This works because time and physiology are linked. When someone says something that feels disrespectful, your stress response spikes. Your heart rate jumps, your breathing changes, your brain narrows down to the perceived threat. In that state, you're not thinking about your long-term standards or the kind of person you want to be. You're thinking about winning, defending, or escaping. Epictetus points out that it's not events themselves but how we judge them that hurts us. Giving yourself a delay lets your body come back toward baseline so your judgment isn't being made by the most panicked, hurt version of you. Here's a microscript you can use to protect that delay. If the disrespect shows up in a text or email, you can say, "I've seen your message. I'll respond once I've had some time to think." If it's happening in real time, on a call or in person, you can say, "I need a moment to think about what you just said. Let's come back to this." Both lines are calm, honest, and give you some breathing room without pretending everything is okay. Imagine a scene in a shared apartment. You've had a long Tuesday. You walk in carrying groceries and a laptop bag. Your roommate looks up from the couch and says, "Nice of you to finally show up. Must be nice not to care about anyone else's schedule." Old you fires back instantly, "Are you serious right now? I literally just worked a 10-hour day and bought your almond milk." 10 minutes later, you're in a full-blown argument about who does more chores, both of you saying things you don't really mean. Instead, with this delay rule, you feel the jab, you feel the urge to snap, and you hear yourself say, "I've had a long day. I'm not in the best headspace to talk about this. I'm going to put these away and then we can figure out what's going on." You walk into the kitchen, set the bags down, and take a few slow breaths. You're not avoiding the conversation. You're refusing to have it while you're boiling. Your tiny action here is to pick a specific delay rule that fits your life. For example, you might decide, I don't respond to any message that feels disrespectful for at least 30 minutes, or if I feel that hot, tight reaction in my chest, I will excuse myself from the room for 2 minutes before saying anything. Write that rule down. Make it real. You can even tell one trusted friend or partner, "Hey, if you see me stepping away for a second when I'm upset, I'm not stonewalling you. I'm trying not to say something I'll regret." Take a moment right now and imagine yourself the next time you get that sharp text from a coworker or a family member. Feel that first rush of heat, and then picture yourself putting the phone face down or placing it on the table. Notice your feet on the floor. Let your shoulders drop a little. Take a slow breath in and let it out. For just a few seconds, you're doing nothing but breathing and feeling your body. Then, in your mind, hear yourself say, "I'll respond once I've had some time to think." You don't owe anyone instant access to your most raw, unfiltered reaction. You owe yourself the space to respond from self-respect. Keep this delay rule close. In that Friday night moment later, when your phone lights up with a cutting message after you've already had a long week, this is what stops you from launching into a midnight argument over text. Now let's talk about something most people skip, deciding what respect actually looks like for you before the moment, so you're not trying to figure it out in the middle of a storm. When you haven't defined your standard, every comment feels like a referendum on your worth. You're trying to measure yourself and other people's behavior at the same time, and that's exhausting. The shift here is simple but not easy. You define how you speak and how you expect to be spoken to, regardless of someone else's mood. If you don't do this, you'll keep bouncing between over-tolerating disrespect and overreacting to minor slights, because you don't have a clear internal line. This works because your nervous system feels safer when it knows the rules. When you have a personal standard, I don't insult people, even when I'm angry, or I don't stay in conversations where I'm being yelled at, you don't have to renegotiate your identity every time someone pushes you. As Seneca suggests when he writes about anger, part of our freedom comes from making decisions ahead of time, in calmer moments, so we're not relying on our worst moods to guide us. You become someone whose behavior is anchored, not someone who's constantly reacting to whatever energy walks into the room. Here's your microscript for setting that standard, first with yourself, then with others. I don't talk to people with disrespect, and I don't stay in conversations where I'm being disrespected. You can adapt the wording, but keep the structure, what you do, and what you won't accept. It's not about controlling others. It's about choosing your own lane. Picture a family dinner in a suburb in the US or Canada. You're back at your parents' place. Everyone's around the table. A relative who's known for joking too far makes a comment about your job or your life choices. So, still doing that little project of yours? When are you going to get a real job? People chuckle. You feel your face burning. Old you either laughs along and feels humiliated inside or snaps with something equally cutting. This time, you remember your standard. You put your fork down, look at them, and say calmly, I don't talk to people with disrespect, and I don't stay in conversations where I'm being disrespected. That comment crossed the line for me. The table goes quiet. Maybe they get defensive, maybe they roll their eyes. You don't match their energy. If they double down, you get up, take your plate, and move to the kitchen or another room. You're not making a scene. You're just enforcing the standard you already chose. Your tiny action today is to write down 2 or 3 sentences that capture your standard around respect. It could be as simple as, I don't raise my voice, I don't insult people, I leave conversations where I'm being yelled at, or I don't let people joke about my body, my culture, or my work. Once you've written them, pick one and practice saying it out loud when no one else is around. It might feel awkward at first. That's normal. You're training your mouth and your nervous system to say something new. Take a slow practice moment with me now. Sit or stand where you are, feel your feet on the floor, and relax your jaw a bit. Then quietly, under your breath if you need to, say, I don't talk to people with disrespect, and I don't stay in conversations where I'm being disrespected. Say it once. Then say it again, just a little slower. Notice how your body feels when you say it. This isn't about being dramatic. It's about sending a signal to yourself, this is who I am now. Keep this standard in the back of your mind, because when we get to that Friday night situation, you're going to see how different it feels to handle a disrespectful comment when you already know your line. Now that you've started defining your standard, we need to give you actual language you can use when someone crosses it. Most people either attack, you're such a jerk, or they hint, wow, okay, and then hope the other person magically understands. Neither of those approaches works well. The instruction here is, describe what happened, name how it lands for you, and state what you need going forward. If you never change this, you'll stay stuck in either aggressive blasts or vague comments that never actually shift the behavior. This works because clear language reduces confusion and defensiveness. When you say, you're disrespectful, the other person hears an attack on their entire identity. They're more likely to defend themselves than to reflect. When you say, when you interrupted me 3 times in that meeting, I felt dismissed. I need you to let me finish my point. You're talking about behavior, impact, and a request. That gives them something specific to respond to, even if they don't love hearing it. It also aligns you with your own values. You're being honest without being cruel. Here's your microscript framework. When you, specific behavior, I feel, your honest emotion. I need, clear request or boundary. You don't have to use those exact words every time, but keep that structure in mind. Behavior. Feeling. Need. It keeps you from drifting into character assassination or vague complaints. Let's put this in a workplace example. You're in an office or on a hybrid team. In a team meeting, a coworker cuts you off twice and makes a snide joke. We'd be here all day if we let you finish every thought. People laugh. Old you either shuts down and says nothing, then complains later to a friend, or snaps back with something like, maybe if you actually had ideas, you'd get interrupted too. That might feel satisfying for 5 seconds, but it usually escalates things. This time, you wait until after the meeting. You ask them to step aside for a minute. You say, when you interrupted me a couple of times and joked about me talking too much, I felt disrespected and brushed off. I need you to let me finish my point in meetings, even if you disagree. They might be surprised. They might say, I was just joking. You stay steady, I get that. It still didn't work for me. I'm asking you not to do that again. You're not yelling. You're not begging. You're being clear. Your tiny action here is to write one version of that script for a real situation in your life. Think of someone who has a pattern. Maybe they make jokes at your expense, maybe they criticize you in front of others, and maybe they talk over you. Use the structure, when you, I feel, I need, and write a version you could actually imagine saying in your own voice. Don't worry about making it perfect. Just get it on paper or in your notes. Take a small, slow practice moment and try this. Close your eyes for a second if that feels safe. Picture the person who tends to cross your line. See them in a familiar place, at the office, on the couch, at the kitchen table. Now, quietly, say your version of the script in your head, or out loud if you can. When you, I feel, I need, notice any tension in your body. If your throat tightens or your chest feels heavy, that's a sign this matters. Take one gentle breath in, and a long breath out. You're not confronting them right now. You're teaching your nervous system that you can say hard things calmly. Remember this structure, because when we get to that Friday night scene, you're going to see exactly how this kind of sentence can turn a potential blow-up into a real, honest conversation. There's another piece we need to add, recognizing that not every instance of disrespect deserves your time and energy. This might sound odd in a conversation about self-respect, but part of emotional control is choosing which battles are worth fighting. If you treat every offhand comment, every stranger's attitude, every online remark as a crisis, you will burn out. The instruction here is, distinguish between patterns that matter and one-off noise, and consciously decide when to disengage. If you don't learn this, you'll spend your life exhausted, constantly trying to correct people who don't even have a meaningful place in your story. This works because attention is limited. When you spend it on every minor slight, you have less left for the relationships and situations that actually matter. Also, some people are not interested in understanding you or respecting you. They're interested in reaction, control, or just venting their own frustration. Emotional control means you can see the hook and decide not to bite. Like Marcus reminds himself when he thinks about dealing with difficult people, you can expect some rudeness in the world without letting it decide who you become. Here's your microscript for disengaging. I'm not going to keep this conversation going if it stays disrespectful. If it's a stranger or someone you don't plan to engage with again, it might be even shorter. I'm not engaging with this, followed by you walking away, logging off, or ending the call. The key isn't the exact wording. It's the decision behind it. You're choosing to protect your focus and your peace. Imagine a scenario on public transit or in a store in a North American city. You're in line, someone behind you makes a comment under their breath about how slow everyone is, then directs it at you. Any slower and we'd all be retired by the time you finish. Old you feels the jolt of disrespect and instantly wants to clap back with something sharp. Maybe you've done that before and the situation spiraled. This time, you turn your head, make eye contact for a second, and say, "I'm not interested in having a conversation with you." Then you turn back and keep moving forward in line. If they keep muttering, you don't respond. You've made your choice. In another context, maybe an online argument, you see a comment that crosses your line. Instead of typing a whole essay, you type, "This crossed a line for me. I'm stepping away from this thread," and then you actually step away. You mute, you log out, and you go do something else. Your tiny action is to pick one area where you know you're spending too much energy reacting. Maybe it's a specific online platform, a certain group chat, or conversations with a particular acquaintance who always comes with drama. Decide one concrete disengagement move you'll use this week. It might be muting a thread, unfollowing or blocking someone, or telling a person, "I'm not going to talk about this with you anymore." Again, write it down so it's not just a vague promise. Take a moment with me to practice what it feels like to not take the bait. Bring to mind the last time a stranger's attitude or a casual acquaintance's comment hooked you into a longer argument than it deserved. Feel that urge to respond rising again for just a second. Then, in your mind, see yourself taking a breath, letting your shoulders drop, and turning your attention away. Say quietly to yourself, "I'm not going to keep this going if it stays disrespectful." Notice the relief that comes with not needing to win every small fight. That relief is also a form of self-respect. Keep this idea of selective engagement in your back pocket. When we get to that Friday night situation, you'll see how choosing not to respond to one unnecessary jab actually gives you more energy to deal with the conversation that matters. We've focused a lot on what you do in the moment, but there's another side to handling disrespect, what you do with yourself afterward. Even when you handle it well, your body can stay revved up. Your thoughts can keep replaying the scene. You might wonder if you overreacted or underreacted. The instruction here is, treat your nervous system like it just went through something heavy, even if it looked calm from the outside. If you skip this, you'll carry the residue of those moments into the next part of your day, and the people you care about most will get whatever's left of you. This works because emotions don't switch off just because the conversation is over. Your body remembers. Your brain tends to loop on unfinished business and perceived threats. If you don't give yourself a way to process what happened, you either numb out, scrolling endlessly, overreading, pouring a drink, or you drag the tension into your next interaction, snapping at someone who had nothing to do with the original disrespect. When you build a simple aftercare routine, you give your system a chance to reset. Here's a microscript you can say to yourself after one of these moments, "That was hard, and I handled it better than before." It might not feel entirely true at first, but it's usually more accurate than the story your inner critic tells, which sounds like, "You messed that up," or "You should have said this instead." You can add another line if it helps: "It's okay that I still feel this in my body." That makes space for the lingering emotion without turning it into a problem you have to fix immediately. Imagine you're driving home from work after a tense exchange with your boss. In the afternoon meeting, they made a dismissive comment about your performance in front of everyone. You used your tools, you didn't snap, you talked to them afterward, you set a boundary. On the drive home, though, you still feel shaky. You might replay the conversation the whole way, ramping up your anger, and then walk in the door already on edge with your partner or kids. This time, you decide to care for yourself on purpose. At a red light, you say quietly, "That was hard, and I handled it better than before." You notice your grip on the steering wheel and loosen it a little. You choose to drive in silence for a few minutes instead of blasting a podcast. When you get home, you sit in the car for 2 extra minutes, taking slow breaths before you walk in. You're not stuffing your feelings down. You're giving them a channel. Your tiny action is to create a simple, repeatable after-disrespect ritual. It doesn't have to be elaborate. It could be a 5-minute walk around the block, a short shower when you get home, a few notes in your phone about what happened and how you responded, followed by one kind sentence to yourself. The key is consistency. You're telling your system, when something like this happens, we take care of ourselves. Let's do a small, slow practice moment together now. Think about a recent time when you felt disrespected and you either handled it better than usual or wish you had. Bring that memory up just enough to feel it slightly. Now, gently tell yourself, "That was hard, and I handled it better than before," or, if you didn't like how you reacted, "That was hard, and I'm learning how to handle it better." Place a hand on your chest if that feels okay. Take a slow breath in and a long breath out. You're showing yourself that you're not just here to analyze your reactions, you're also here to support yourself as you grow. Remember this aftercare piece, because when we walk through that Friday night scenario, you'll see that the story doesn't end when the conversation does. How you treat yourself afterward is part of emotional control too. At this point, you've got tools for the moment and the aftermath. Now we need to tie them together into a bigger identity shift. You're becoming someone who is steady in the face of disrespect, not because people suddenly stopped crossing your lines, but because you decided who you want to be in those moments. The instruction here is, see every instance of disrespect as a chance to practice being that steadier version of yourself. If you don't do this, you'll stay in a mindset where each incident feels like proof that people don't value you, instead of an opportunity to reinforce your own values. This works because your brain is always building a story about who you are based on what you do repeatedly. If every time you feel disrespected you see it as, "Here we go again, people treating me like trash," you're reinforcing a story of helplessness or victimhood, even if you're technically standing up for yourself in angry ways. If instead you start seeing it as, "Here's another rep to practice my pause, my standard, my script, my disengagement," then even when the moment is unpleasant, you walk away with more evidence that you're changing. Here's a microscript for that identity shift. This is my practice moment. I'm using it to become steadier. You can say it quietly in your head when the comment lands or right after as you're walking away. It reframes the situation from something that's just happening to you to something you're also doing something with. Imagine a relationship example in an apartment on a Friday evening. Your partner is stressed about money. A bill was higher than expected. They make a comment, "If you actually paid attention to our finances, maybe we wouldn't be in this mess." That line cuts deep. You either launches into a full defense, "Excuse me? I'm the only one who even cares about these bills," or shuts down and doesn't talk to them for the rest of the night. This time, you feel the hit, you delay your reaction, and quietly inside you say, "This is my practice moment. I'm using it to become steadier." You take a slow breath, remember your standard, and say, "When you blamed me for the bill, I felt attacked. I need us to talk about this without assigning all the fault to one person." The conversation might still be tense, but you leave it knowing you acted from who you want to be. Your tiny action is to decide how you want to describe yourself in these situations going forward. It could be as simple as, I'm someone who pauses before I respond, or I'm someone who speaks clearly about what I will and won't accept, or I'm someone who doesn't let every rude comment own my whole day. Pick one identity sentence and write it somewhere visible. Each time you handle a moment even slightly better than before, mentally check it off as another vote for that identity. Take a brief, slow practice moment. Think of the next week of your life: work, texts, family, errands. You don't have to imagine anything extreme. Just assume there will be 1 or 2 moments where someone says something that lands wrong. Now, picture yourself in one of those moments, hearing the line in your own mind, "This is my practice moment. I'm using it to become steadier." Feel how different that is from, "Here we go again." Take one calm breath in and out. You're rehearsing who you're becoming. Keep this identity shift in view, because when we step into that Friday night story soon, you're going to see the whole sequence: pause, delay, standard, script, disengagement, aftercare, identity, play out in real time as one coherent way of being. Now let's bring all of this into a single evening where everything could go wrong. It's a Friday night in a North American city. You've had a long week, work deadlines, traffic, a couple of small arguments that didn't fully resolve. You're tired. You finally get home, drop your bag by the door, and you're looking forward to a quiet night in. You order takeout, change into something comfortable, and sink into the couch. For a moment, everything feels still. Then your phone buzzes. It's a text from someone close to you, maybe your partner if you don't live together, maybe a close friend you've been trying to reconnect with. You open it and see, it's pretty clear I'm never at the top of your list. I'm done being an afterthought. You feel a shock in your chest. You would immediately fire back, "Wow, seriously? After everything I do?" Or you'd throw the phone down, shut off emotionally, and let the resentment simmer. But this time, something different happens. First, you feel it, the hot rush, the tight throat, the sting of the words. You hear your inner line from earlier, "Something just landed hard. I don't have to react yet." You put the phone face down on the coffee table. You sit back against the couch instead of curling forward into the screen. You take one slow, deliberate breath, and another. You notice your feet on the floor, the weight of your body on the cushions. You've just created the gap. You remember your delay rule. You're not going to respond to this text right away. You quietly say to yourself, "I'll respond once I've had some time to think." You open your messages and type a short reply, "I've seen your message. I'll respond once I've had some time to think." Then you set the phone down again. Instead of diving into a back and forth that would keep you up all night, you stand up, walk into the kitchen, and pour yourself a glass of water. The urge to grab the phone and keep arguing is strong, but you stick with the delay. As you move around your apartment, you recall your standard: "I don't talk to people with disrespect, and I don't stay in conversations where I'm being disrespected." You think about the history with this person. You know there have been times when they've spoken to you in ways that weren't okay, and times when you've snapped back. You decide that when you do respond, you're going to be clear about what does and doesn't work for you. You let that decision settle in your body like a quiet anchor. After about 20 minutes, you feel enough of the initial wave pass that you can think more clearly. You pick up the phone again, reread the message, and ask yourself, what actually happened here? You remember missing a call earlier in the week, rescheduling plans once or twice, and you can see how they might be hurt. You also see that the way they expressed it crossed your line. This is your practice moment. You hear that internal line, "This is my practice moment. I'm using it to become steadier." You start your reply with the structure you've been working on. When you text that you're done being an afterthought, especially in the middle of a Friday night, "I feel blindsided and disrespected. I care about our relationship, and I also need us to talk about this in a way that doesn't attack my character. I want to understand what you're feeling, but I'm not going to keep having conversations where I'm spoken to like that." You read it over. It's honest. It names behavior, feeling, and need. It doesn't return the insult. Before you hit send, you take another slow breath. You check in with your standard again. Does this align with who I want to be? It does. You send the message. Almost immediately, you feel that hit of anxiety. What if they fire back something worse? What if they don't respond at all? You remind yourself, that was hard, and I handled it better than before. You set the phone down again and turn to your food. You actually eat while it's still warm. A few minutes later, their reply comes in. You glance at the notification. I'm just tired of feeling like I don't matter to you. But fine. You feel a flicker of irritation at the but fine, the hint of sarcasm. Old you would jump back in, trying to fix every nuance of tone. Instead, you ask yourself, is this worth more energy tonight, or is this where I pause? You decide it's enough for now. You write, I hear that you're tired of feeling that way. I'm open to talking about this tomorrow when we're both calmer. Then you put the phone on Do Not Disturb for the rest of the evening. You turn the TV on, not to drown everything out, but to give your mind a softer focus. Between scenes, you still feel some tension in your chest, some sadness, some anger. You remember your aftercare, this was hard, and you handled it differently. You take a short shower, letting the water be a way of literally washing the moment off your skin. As you dry off, you look at yourself in the mirror and say quietly, this is my practice moment. I'm using it to become steadier. You don't have to feel perfect. You just have to notice that you chose your responses instead of being dragged by them. Later, as you get into bed, you might still be thinking about the conversation you'll have tomorrow. But you're not stuck in a replay of insults and comebacks. You're thinking about what you'll say from your standard, with your script, at a time you chose. You put your phone on the nightstand, screen down. You take 3 slow breaths. You feel the weight of the blanket, the softness of the pillow, the rhythm of your heart as it slows. The disrespect didn't disappear. The relationship still needs work. But you made it through a vulnerable Friday night without losing yourself in anger or silence. What this whole lesson has really been about is simple, separating what other people do from who you decide to be when it happens. You can't control every comment, tone, or reaction. You can control the space between the hit of disrespect and your next move. That's the difference between reacting and responding, between mindless explosions or shutdowns and intentional, grounded behavior you're proud of later. We started by stepping into that micro moment where your phone lights up or someone makes a sharp comment in the kitchen, and you feel your chest tighten. You saw that the first move isn't a perfect comeback, it's the quiet line in your head that says, something just landed hard. I don't have to react yet. From there, you learn to put a real delay between the disrespect and your response, telling yourself and others, I'll respond once I've had some time to think, so your reactions aren't being driven by the worst 5 seconds of your day. We talked about defining your standard ahead of time, deciding you don't talk to people with disrespect and you don't stay in conversations where you're being disrespected, so you're not trying to figure out your values in the middle of a heated exchange. Then we layered in clear language you can use when someone crosses that line, using the structure of behavior, feeling, and need so you're describing what happened and what you want instead of attacking their whole character. After that, we looked at the importance of selective engagement, choosing which moments are worth your energy and which ones are just noise you can step away from, especially with strangers or people who aren't invested in your well-being. We didn't stop at the moment itself. You learned to take care of your nervous system afterward, reminding yourself, that was hard, and I handled it better than before, and giving yourself a small ritual, a walk, a shower, a few notes, and a kind sentence, to help your body come back down. Then we pulled all those pieces into a bigger identity shift, seeing each instance of disrespect as a practice moment to become steadier, not as proof that you're powerless or unworthy. Finally, we walked through that Friday night example where a cutting text could easily have turned into an all-night fight, and you saw yourself using the gap, the delay, the standard, the clear script, the disengagement, and the aftercare to get through it without losing your self-respect. Now it's time to turn this from ideas into something you actually do today. First, pick one line you'll use as your personal pause. It might be, something just landed hard. I don't have to react yet. Write it down and aim to use it once the next time you feel that hot, tight reaction in your chest. Second, choose one delay rule and test it for the next week, maybe no replies to emotionally charged messages for at least 30 minutes, or always stepping away from a heated room for 2 minutes before answering. Third, write one clear when you I feel, I need sentence for a real pattern in your life, and commit to saying it the next time that pattern shows up, even if your voice shakes a little. If this resonated, the natural next step is to go deeper into how to hold your boundaries once you've named them, especially when people push back, minimize your feelings, or accuse you of being too sensitive. That's what we'll dig into in a lesson on building and enforcing healthy boundaries without guilt, something like boundaries without drama, saying what you mean and staying calm. Emotional control and boundaries are two sides of the same long-term self-respect. If you want a whole library of Stoic focus lessons on emotional control, boundaries, and relationships, this is what we do here every week. If you feel messages like this need to reach more people, hit like, tap subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments.